This is the story of Dennis Nielsen, played by David Tennant, who in the mid-70s and early 80s killed, he thinks, up to 15 men and young boys. The whole thing is uncovered when a neighbour reports some smells coming from a blocked drain. The drain company goes to examine it and finds human remains. That gets Detective Inspector Peter J, played by Daniel Mays, involved. And when they catch up with Dennis Nielsen, played by David Tennant, and ask them what happened here and what happened to the rest of the body, he just confesses, oh, there's some in the cupboard, there's some here, there's some there. And what transpires is the story of this dangerous serial killer who's quite glib, very open about the awful things he's done. And it's the story from three different perspectives. So you've got David Tennant as Des, Daniel Mays as Peter J, the detective who is utterly consumed by the case, and finally Dennis's biographer Brian Masters, played by Jason Watkins, who sort of falls under Des's spell and does pretty much whatever he asks of him in the pursuit of writing his life story. And I've not been particularly quiet about this on Twitter, and I think it's a masterpiece.
This evening, 2 police officers entered your flat. There they found the remains of a man. Do you want to explain that?
In what context?
How did it get there?
Have you searched the rest of the flat yet?
We're in the process of that as we speak.
You'll find more in the tea chest in my bedroom and in the turned-up drawer in my bathroom. All in all, the remains of 3 people.
In the car, you said that there was more.
I must advise my client.
195 Melrose Avenue, N2. There, you'll find the remains of 12 or 13 people dating back to 1978. Might be a relief to get this off my chest.
Who do all these remains belong to?
I need a moment with my
That's
client.
okay. I'm afraid I don't remember their names.
None of them?
Well, at the time, I'd only just met them.
Where did you meet them?
All over, bars, on the street. Someone just wanted to give a meal. London can be a lonely place sometimes. A friendly face goes a long way.
So they were homeless?
Some, because of the drugs, usually. It really is a disease. It's very sad. And this bloody government does nothing for them.
Were they all male?
Aye.
How old were they?
Oh, some look younger than others. So I'm not being very helpful.
No, you're doing fine. How did you kill them?
I strangled them.
Where did these murders take place?
In my house. Mostly on my bed, to be specific.
So they came home with you willingly?
Yeah.
Were they all homosexual?
Don't remember asking them.
Are you homosexual, Mr. Nielsen?
Well, for the sake of convenience, you should probably class me as homosexual. If that's actually true, I'm not so sure.
The 3 in Cranley Gardens, when did these murders take place?
The most recent was 3 weeks ago. The others last year, sometime.
You kept them for a year?
Aye.
In pieces?
No, the section's merely for disposal. That's the dirty platter after the feast, if you like. No, in Melrose, it was simple because it was a ground floor flat, so it was space under the floorboards for storage and sole access to a garden, and a clearance was called for. Yeah, no, I remember at Melrose when the bodies began to accumulate, I knew there'd be a smell problem, so at the weekend, I'd take up the floorboards, get blind and drunk, so I could face it, and put down sort of, black plastic like a bin liner for the mess, and I'd start the section on the kitchen floor. Now, I learned if you make an incision just below the navel, you can pretty much get everything without having to deal with the rib cage and such. And it was all trial and error.
You buried them in the garden?
No, I burnt them. I wrapped them in an old piece of carpet and I threw a tire on top to hide the smell. I took no pleasure in cutting up people or boiling heads or burning bodies. I did it because I had to. There was no more space.
How many bodies did you have in the house at any one time?
Well, I never did a stock check.
Or ask their names, it seems.
No, that I do regret. Yeah, I wish I could remember their names to tell you now. I really do.
I have to ask, why did you do this?
Oh, I don't really know. I was hoping you could tell me that.
I think all of it is just perfect. There are echoes and parallels between another ITV crime drama of the similar ilk, which I loved in 2011, called Appropriate Adult. Fred West again sits opposite the police at a table and tells them in every gruesome detail what he's done, and this is what Dennis does. You know, he talks about killing someone after he'd let them listen to the Who's Tommy album and felt quite envious of them listening to it for the first time. He doesn't really understand why he does these awful things, and he admits they're awful things, but he's also a narcissist. He's also craving of people's attention and time. He asks to see the newspaper cuttings that have been written about him. He pleads not guilty, so he has to go to trial, so he gets more of a media spotlight. And I think it's David Tennant's best performance for a long, long time. He disappears into the role. Growing up when I did, Dennis Nielsen wasn't really a part of the news or anything like that. I didn't know.
I'd heard the name.
Story. Yes, me too. But that didn't take away from my enjoyment of the show at all. And I do think Daniel Mays and Jason Watkins, that trio, they're just some of the best on television.
I thought it was excellently acted, as you said, by the three leads. David Tennant, very, very chilling. Daniel Mays was the heart of this program. I really liked Jason Watkins. Sort of played a Jason. The character he plays very well. The sort of pompous, by the books, very particular character who, as you say, was very charmed by Nielsen. And I think the best crime dramas, you know, we saw this, as you said, with Appropriate Adult, and it was done elsewhere. I think with you know, Jeff Pope does this really well. Where he finds a character away from the killer or the person who we know. So, for example, you know, he did Mrs. Biggs, he did Appropriate Adult, he did The Moor Side, where we had a character associated with
the story we knew, but the perspective we hadn't seen.
And I suppose the perspective, as you say here, from both Peter J and Brian Masters, allowed, I think, the audience to get into it a little bit more. And I think the sense of an ending as well, where we get in some of these victims were never identified. Some of them never got the justice that they deserved. I did think it was a classy move to put up the names of the people that he did, you know, kill and were identified. I felt even some of the, you know, the supporting performances were brilliant in this. I really liked an actor called Ron Cook, who was the DSI overseeing things here, and he was very good also in the Salisbury poisonings, as we mentioned that already earlier in the year. An actor called Laurie Nyaston.
I was just trying to look him up.
That was played Carl Stotter, who was an attempted victim of Nielsen's, who initially didn't want to speak at all. They got him to testify because their case was failing. It almost like they used him in a way and spat him out and vilified for his past as a female impersonator and obviously for being homosexual, which was still very taboo in the 1980s, which made it feel older than it was.
What I would say is it made two important choices that I think it benefited from. So we never saw grisly flashbacks of Dennis Nielsen committing any of these crimes, and we never saw a picture of Dennis Nielsen as he was at the end. It was very much not about giving him more screen time than he needed to. ITV did a separate documentary the following night about the real story. But I think the choices they made it feel more organic, made it feel more real. And David Tennant's performance was so chilling that you didn't need to see him do these heinous things, because just listening to him discuss it in the glib and offhand way he did was far more shocking and hit you harder than if you'd seen him strangle these people or drown these people or boil their heads or the awful things he was asked to do. I really think it's a masterpiece. I really think it's up there with certainly the best ITV have done for a very long time. Funnily enough, they're re-showing Appropriate Adult next week, and I just think for those people who haven't seen it, they will get a lot out of it because
this week is it now?
Sorry, this week,
Yeah.
as we're recording.
Yeah.
So I think it was pretty perfect.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, I did really enjoy it. I can't say it was a bad. It kept my attention for 3 episodes. Told a story in a compassionate way, as you say, without sensationalizing it.
Yeah.
And I think Tennant's performance possibly will earn him the BAFTA.
Yeah, but I'd be really sad to see either Daniel Mays or Jason Watkins lose out because they were as key to this.
I think they might pop one of them in supporting.
Do check up on it on the ITV Hub if you are so inclined. If you've heard a lot of the hype, then in my view it lives up to that.